difference might seem innocuous, but the letter on your counterpart's forehead offers a window into his or her mind. If the E resembles, as he has it here in the image, as the one on the left and the right, yes. 2 ways to draw. Okay? Or same way, you can do it in block letters, it would be like this. This is written so that the person looking at it makes sense. If you write it this way, it's so you see it, so that it makes sense. Because if this was on your forehead and you looked at it in the mirror, would it be correct?
Yeah.
It would be correct if you looked at it in a mirror. And so he comments here in this part of the book that since the mid-1980s, social psychologists have used this technique, call it the E test, to measure whether they dubbed perspective taking when confronted with an unusual or complex situation involving other people, and how do we make sense of what's going on? Or in the other, so do you take the perspective of the person you're working with, or do you take it from your perspective? And as a physician, I think you're all trained this way, you should be taking it in whose perspective?
Patients.
Your patient's perspective. And when I heard your stories, the 6 stories, 5 stories that we heard, I heard a side from you that I had never really heard before, and it was remarkably refreshing to hear that. You're on a wonderful start. I know this seems kind of silly, once upon a time, but now take that once upon a time story and now write it so that you could publish it on a website, on a brochure. Why? Did that not just explain the why? Why you do what you do?
I think so, because it's a very important place.
So now, in this section of your text, you're now going to do some prototyping and testing. So the next step is to develop your value proposition, a headline with a little subheadline, a couple, 3 sentences. You can use the once upon a time story to start building what is your value proposition and start sharing it with people. How many here in this room have colleagues or friends that you're with that aren't in this school, that aren't fellow doctors? You have one. Yeah. Anywhere in your lives. Okay. You all have access to a smartphone or a computer.
Yeah.
You can connect with these people, can't you? Facebook. Start testing your value proposition. Ask them, what does it mean to them? You gotta have people you trust, people you care about. People that you don't fully trust or fully care about will BS you. They will tell you, oh yeah, that's really nice. You have someone that you need to trust to say, hey, I'm working on the why of what I do for my business, for my practice, my value proposition. I want to look beyond what I do. I know what I do. I take blood pressure, I take temperatures. You could list all day long the things you do, right? I'm trying to get into a phrase that you understand that makes sense to you of why you would come see me. And take your stories and start developing your value proposition. Because what we're going to do next is we get this clarified in greater depth. And the last session when we're together, we're actually going to look at how you publish this, how you get it out, and how it becomes a part of your business program. Because at some point, you should have a website, you'll have some printed materials, you'll be in places to talk to people, maybe you will be asked to come speak. I know a lot of clients that I've worked with, we try to encourage them to get invited to come speak. Wouldn't it be nice if you were invited to go to a church or a community event to talk about what naturopathic medicine is all about? To a bunch of lay people? Are they not all potential customers? How do we, yes?
There's actually an open
Yeah.
Healthy heart, heart health, happy heart, kind of.
New.
You just kind of made me want to reach, like, connect with you about that particular event.
Thank you, yes.
And knowing that you have your own circles as well outside of here.
So we're at that point now where you should be starting to develop your value proposition. And now start testing it and prototyping it. What is a prototype?
Rough draft.
It's usually something we make kind of a small scale version of it and test it before we go into production. So I want you to start prototyping. There's lots of ways you can do it. Your book talks about the napkin prototype. We just did it on your computers. I like to add to that the Once Upon a Time. Dan Pink has other items here in his book, and you can just type in, you can just Google Dan Pink's 6 pitches and you'll get them all on a number of sites. His other 5 are what he calls the 1-word pitch. Write a 50-word pitch, reduce it to 25 words, then to 6 words, and of those remaining half dozen, almost certainly is your 1-word pitch. That may be a little harder for that. He has what he calls the question pitch. Use this if your arguments are strong, if they're weak, make a statement, or better yet, find a new argument. But a question, idea, would you like to live a healthier, more natural life? Sort of thing. I like this one. It's a little more challenging. I've heard it. If it's not done well, it's cheesy. It's called the rhyming pitch. And that's very, very memorable. The most classic one was in the 80s when a gentleman by the name of O.J. Simpson was placed on trial for the murder of his girlfriend and one of their friends. And the late Johnny Cochran was saying to the jury at one point, he was accused of having to wear gloves. And he said to the jury, if it doesn't fit, you must quit. That, whether you agreed or disagreed with the jury's outcome on that case, that was probably one of the most brilliant things I've ever heard. What do you think the jury went back to the verdict? If it doesn't fit, you must acquit. Now, I'm a big fan of the rhyming pitch. He's a professional. If it's poorly done, it becomes cheesy. It becomes cheesy. But think about that. And he gives in his site, there is a thing called www.rhymezone. So if you're not really good at rhyming things, you can go to this website, type in a word, and they'll give you a whole bunch of words to rhyme with it. The other one is the subject line pitch. This is one of the most brilliant ones. He bases it after email. One of the most successful email campaigns, I think it was 2008, by President Barack Obama. He mailed thousands upon thousands of emails. You know what the subject line was? Hey! That's the subject line. What are you going to do if you get a subject line that says, hey? You're going to open it because you're curious. How many here open up emails that don't have a subject line? What's in it?
Nope.
As opposed to a subject line, the meeting to discuss the marketing ideas in BUS 3722 on Thursday the 17th. That's an exciting subject line to open, isn't it? The Twitter pitch. Calls it the Twitter pitch. Even though Twitter allows 140 characters, limit your pitch to 120 characters so that others can pass it on. Remember that the best pitches are short, sweet, and easy to retweet. Combine the rhyme and pitch into that. And then the one we did here, he calls the Pixar pitch, which is my favorite for developing that. Emma Coates was the woman that he interviewed that worked for Pixar for many, many years and actually spilled the beans they're going. When we do any Pixar movie, it's all based on those 6 lines. Toy Story, Toy Story 1, all of those things are based on those 6 lines. So ponder that to help you build your value proposition. How are we doing? Sleepy? It's a beautiful day. Well, if we can do one more thing, we can go home. Do I have a motion from the floor? What is the motion?
Motion to be done at the next thing.
What is that thing?
Pardon?
What is the thing?
The motion.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion on the floor to adjourn the class. Do I have a second?
Second.
We we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passed and carried.